protocols that have already been established this morning. Let me start by saying a very good morning to all of you. Good morning.
Morning.
I think we are alive now. That's good. It is an honor for me to address you today and share insights at a pivotal moment for our global and local communities. As the world navigates increasing uncertainties, the Sustainable Development Goals present a crucial framework for partnerships, international cooperation, and resilience. The SDGs are our collective blueprint for uplifting humanity, from combating poverty and hunger to ensuring quality education, health and well-being, clean water, energy for all, decent jobs, equality, and climate action. Acknowledging the progress made, and also references have already been made by Reverend Damascene of the dismal performance globally on the SDGs, significant challenges remain. Tackling these require a steadfast collaborative approach. Today, I would like to share perspectives with you as a roadmap for advancing SDGs in Zimbabwe, focusing on key strategies for effective implementation. First, strengthening institutional capacity and coordination. Let me first acknowledge and congratulate the government of Zimbabwe for establishing a dedicated SDG secretariat within the Ministry of Public Service, Labor and Social Welfare. This is a commendable start. This initiative, from our experience, will enhance coordination and accountability among government bodies, civil society, private actors, and development partners. Localizing implementation, as seen in the exchanges recently in Victoria Falls when we have the Tri-National Conference, including representatives from Zimbabwe, Mozambique, and South Africa. It was indeed enticing to note progress that has been made and also the peer learning that took place there. And I can only reinforce at this point that this should translate into local policies aligned with the devolution strategy and fund, ensuring no one and no place is left behind. Second, addressing economic and employment challenges. This is critical to absorb the growing labor force, alleviate poverty, and foster inclusive economic growth. We need policies that promote sustainable growth, diversification, and job creation. Reducing informality and supporting entrepreneurship is also very critical, especially for our youth, and enhancing education and skills will enhance their opportunities. Third, improving infrastructure and services. Investment in infrastructures, including energy, transport, and ICT, is an imperative. Public-private partnerships should be leveraged to overcome these constraints. Similarly, expanding access to clean water, healthcare, and education will support our most vulnerable communities. Fourth, enhancing social protection and equity. Expanding social safety nets, such as the National Social Register, is vital to safeguard vulnerable populations from poverty and climate shocks. Targeting inequalities, particularly among women, youth, and people with disabilities, will strengthen our national collective effort. Fifth, mobilizing resources and partnerships. Ladies and gentlemen, let me pause here. We are at a critical stage in the aid architecture globally. I'm sure most of you are following what is happening. And it's so heart-rending that the aid community is confronting serious funding challenges. It's also testing the morale and also the legitimacy of that global compact that came into existence after the Second World War. It is becoming extremely apparent that developing nations should start looking inward, trying to see how they can maximize available resources to respond to the needs of their citizens. I underline this because we are experiencing a drastic and dramatic change in the global aid architecture. Multilateralism is grossly being undermined. Geopolitics and tensions are overwhelming the global result. So here we are today in Africa, where we are calling on governments to look inward, try to ensure that local resource mobilization is maximized, and issues of accountability and corruption are addressed. We have the potentials in Africa. The statistics will give you a shock. $89 billion are lost every year on illicit financial flows from Africa. The total contribution we are getting from the US globally is around 52 to $60 billion. So correcting illicit financial flows alone in Africa can even start meeting our needs. Pension funds are not being used efficiently and effectively to support development efforts. These are areas we have to look at very, very carefully and see how we can continue to support development aspirations in Africa. I stumbled across another data where MasterCard is making around $800 billion from Africa annually. You start asking how much is left in Africa and how much is being used to support Africans' development. These are opportunities, not to talk about tax-related problems, etc. There's even the statistics that Africa is losing about $500 billion every year through various mechanisms. So the challenge is to African governments in general. What can we do differently? We have this shock, and all of a sudden we are dancing around talking about prioritization, innovation, efficiency, and effectiveness, avoiding duplication, etc. But this is something we should have been doing all this time around, not now that we are getting the shock. So I think prioritization will remain extremely important in moving forward, and that is why I think today the discussion I'm having with government authorities here on the SDGs is so critical, because it cannot continue as business as usual. In that regard, we strongly believe that increasing domestic revenue and fostering public-private partnership will support SDG implementation, and also we need to do more to try to encourage diaspora remittances and improving data systems to complement our efforts. My last DT session as resident coordinator and representative of the Secretary General was Nigeria, where diaspora remittances was around $21 billion. In Zimbabwe, it's a small proportion compared to a country like Nigeria, but Nigeria is over 200 million people, so we cannot really compare. So from that perspective. But what became extremely clear to us was that diaspora remittances are becoming extremely, extremely important in development. And governments should try to create catalytic ways of ensuring that these inflows also contribute to national development. The problem we are facing with diaspora remittances in Africa is that they are targeted at individual household levels. Expenditures and investment are done at household levels. So government has to put in place mechanisms on how to attract it to the national system, so that they can also benefit from it. If you don't have resources flowing into the national economy, reproduction of that national economy is very, very slow, or even non-existent at all. At the household level, I can see the dynamics in Zimbabwe as I travel the breadth of this country. You can see that at households that have people living abroad are managing to make a living with support from their children or relatives, as the case might be. But those resources are not coming through government channels. They are coming straight to the household level. So for them to actually contribute to the engine of reproduction of national economies, they are very, very slow. The sixth is addressing climate change. We strongly believe that implementing climate-resistant policies to mitigate and adapt to environmental challenges is of paramount importance in accelerating implementation of the SDGs. We must escalate investment particularly in agriculture and renewable energy, to help Zimbabwe on the path of a transformative change towards sustainability and prosperity. Finally, promoting good governance and the rule of law remains extremely critical to strengthen institutions, and anti-corruption measures are also critical to underpin successful development efforts. Friends and colleagues, the path ahead may be fraught with challenges. We try to describe it with tragedies from pandemics to climate crisis and geopolitical tensions captured by conflict, including proxy wars. But there is a significant opportunity for progress during these unfortunate situations. By leveraging technology, promoting inclusive policies, and investing in the 6 transitions as investment pathways across food systems, energy, digital connectivity, educational transformation, jobs and social protection, and climate change, biodiversity, and pollution, Zimbabwe can advance on its SDGs commitments. I'm sure we'll be talking later about the 6 transitions. But what are these? These transitions are rooted in the SDGs, and it is not a new agenda. Please, because people are actually of this opinion that when we talk about these 6 transitions, this is a new agenda. They are all part of the SDGs. The critical use of this transition is their multiplier effect, yeah, and investment pathways. As we see in Africa, trying to kill 2 birds with 1 stone. If you invest in food system transformation, I don't need to recite it for you. It has indirect implication across all the SDGs. Renewable energy remains a catalyst for production and reproduction. Talking about connectivity, I don't need to drag it, while digital investments are important. Education, we don't need to re-emphasize it. You know what education can do and the implication it has across the development aspirations of every country, and etc. We can go on for a while. The transitions for us are an organizing frame as an investment pathways to accelerate progress. We think if government plans take into consideration the 6th transition, the possibility that they can galvanize effective coordination among interministerial bodies are higher. We all know the problems of coordination in intergovernmental programs in Africa as a whole. But what the 6th transition does is that it brings the synergies across so that you get together with all the various ministries and reduce the polarity that exists by following each ministry's mandate. The third aspect is that they require integrated policy for economic, social, and environmental change to accelerate the 2030 agenda. What this is telling us is that since it has the capacity of bringing together multiple ministries, then the efforts for integrated policy efforts are enhanced. You don't have to go to Ministry of Environment to only talk about environment, but you talk about renewable energy, you'll be talking about environment in that process. And then also, it is based on the prevailing context in each country. The mathematics of our colleagues looked at 6 of these transitions, and they were able to determine the multiplier pathways of each of them. But that doesn't mean that these are the priorities of all countries. Zimbabwe can decide to add 1 more based on the urgent priorities in your country. But please don't go back to 14 thematic areas. It's just increased problems of polarity. Coordination becomes extremely expensive and very not effective in moving forward. Our approach in accelerating the SDGs requires integrated policies that address multiple goals simultaneously. And that is where the 6th transition comes in. And also transformative governance, science and innovation, sustainable financing, inclusive participation that are so critical to bolster UN development systems support. As we embark on these transitions, let us remain committed to collaboration and shared ambition, utilizing every resource and partnership to ensure sustainable, inclusive development for Zimbabwe. Coming back to some of the specific questions that we are asking, what is the role of the UN system in implementation of the SDGs? First, I didn't want to address it, but I said re-emphasizing it it's not a problem. It helps. So the United Nations agencies, some people might be asking, what is your role? But I'm sure everybody in this room knows. Supports implementation of the Sustainable Development Goals by providing technical assistance, capacity building, data analysis, policy advice, and funding to countries to help them integrate SDGs into national development plans. The United Nations also help monitor progress and address specific challenges related to each goal, with a focus on leaving no one behind, with key agencies contributing expertise to their respective area of mandates. You have 25 agencies, funds, and programs that support Zimbabwe. 15 are resident in the country. The rest are working from their headquarters or regional offices, and they are all providing technical assistance to most of your ministries here. The UN also plays a vital role in facilitating partnerships for SDGs by using the convening power to provide platforms for dialogue, negotiation, and consensus building among diverse stakeholders. One of the critical functions of my office as a representative Secretary General and resident humanitarian coordinator is the convening power of that office to bring together all these various agencies with different mandates, working with governments, private sector, civil society, etc. And we help mobilize resources, although they are very catalytic. We are not the World Bank or the IMF that is giving big loans. Whatever we bring is very, very small and catalytic. We also help mobilize resources, coordinate actions, and align policies and programs with the SDGs and support countries to develop and implement national and local plans and strategies and policies that reflect the country's priorities and context. For example, promoting local leadership and ownership of the development agenda, which is so critical for success. Our engagement at the country level is guided by member states through a document, critical document. Since we're in foreign affairs, they know about this. The Quadrennial Comprehensive Policy Review. This is a document. It's like our Quran and our Bible. It directs development efforts and how we can support and work with governments. And that document for 2025 has established some key guidelines and principles for the operational activities for development, and I will outline a few of them for you. One of the emphasis of the QCPR is that there is no one-size-fits-all approach to development. Consequently, the UN must pursue the full alignment of its operational activities with national development plans and strategies and strengthen national ownership and leadership. Two, national governments have the primary responsibility for their country's development and for coordinating all types of external assistance, including that provided by multilateral organizations. Three, all entities of the UN development system must continue to mainstream the SDG in their strategic planning and in their regional and country program documents and in their work and reporting at all levels. Fourth, the United Nations Sustainable Development Cooperation Framework is the most important instrument for planning and implementation of the UN development activities in each country, and national governments have a central role to play in its preparation, implementation, monitoring, and evaluation in order to enhance national ownership and alignment with national priorities. Fifth, entity-specific country program documents must be derived from and aligned to the cooperation framework. There was even a heated debate on why should respective agencies have different program documents when you have a cooperation framework. But the world is not as egalitarian as one can always think. There is always interest that prevail in some cases. So that was not one of the easiest discussions, because some mandates of some UN agencies are quite closely linked to the interests of some of the member states. And some member states are investing in some mandates disproportionately or proportionately at times, as the case might be. This is a summary of a long and comprehensive document that outlines our responsibility, and I hope it has given you some insight into it. I look forward to a meaningful discussion today as we work towards achieving the SDGs in Zimbabwe. Thank you very much.